In this geometry video, we're going to continue with deductive reasoning, focusing on proofs, postulates, and theorems. In our last video, we talked about conditional statements, if A, then B, often written A, arrow, B, just to shorten things up. In geometry, you'll usually be given some information about a space or object or shapes, and asked to prove something about them. For example, you might be given a triangle and asked to prove something about it. For example, you might be asked to prove that it's a right triangle, given that it has maybe a 90-degree angle here. This is where our proofs come in. I like to think of proofs in the same way I think about essays in an English class. In an English class, you might be asked to give an argument as to why cats and dogs are better pets than chimpanzees. So you use an essay to lay out your argument, starting with a thesis, and then laying out your arguments, followed by your conclusion. In geometry, we'll use proofs to make our arguments and explain our answers. Proofs in geometry are set up in two columns. Statements are on the left, and reasons are on the right. The statement column is where we put our conditional statements. This lays out our argument. So, for example, with that right triangle we had a minute ago, my first statement might be, if I've got my triangle ABC, remember it had that 90-degree angle, then that triangle ABC is a right triangle. All of my statements follow this if-then pattern that we learned about with our conditional statements. My right-hand column is where I put my reasons for my statements. You have to justify everything in a proof. Every conditional statement you write down needs some sort of justification. This is where those postulates and theorems are going to come in handy. So let's give a quick example. My first statement was if I have triangle ABC. My first reason in any proof is going to be that this was simply given to me. This is the given information of the problem. It's whatever the setup is. My next reason, my reason for statement 2, triangle ABC is a right triangle, let's say that comes from the definition of a right triangle. And this is because any triangle with a 90-degree angle is a right triangle. These are things we'll talk about later down the line. Let's do a quick proof for an algebraic problem, just to get the handle on how a proof works. I'm going to be given the equation 2x plus 4 equals 6. And I'm being asked to prove that x equals 1 for this equation. So we start off with what was given to us, 2x plus 4 equals 6. The reason for the first step of our proofs is always just the given information. This was given to me by the problem. My next step says, well, if 2x plus 4 equals 6, then, using some algebraic properties of equality, I can subtract 4 from both sides. This means that 2x equals 2. So if 2x plus 4 equals 6, then 2x equals 2. The reason for this is my subtraction property of equality. All right, now we'll go on to our third step. So if 2x equals 2, then x equals 1, and this is because of my division property of equality. I started with my given information and worked my way down using these conditional statements until we proved what the question was asking for, x equals 1. We justified each step, in this case with properties of equality. So now that we understand what a proof is and how we use it, let's talk about those postulates and theorems. These are the two main ways that we will justify any statements. We'll also use things like definitions and properties of equality and other mathematical justifications. But these are the two big ones in geometry that you need to know. We'll start with talking about postulates. A postulate is a statement that is assumed to be true without proof. This is sort of like the given of all of geometry, or I like to think of it as the basic game rules. If you're given a new board game, you first have to read all the rules before you can play. These rules are just sort of set out by the game maker. They're the foundation for the whole game, and so postulates are the foundation for all of geometry. There are 6 in total. We'll discuss the 6 postulates in our next video when we talk about points, planes, and lines. Now let's talk about theorems. Theorems are statements that must be proved. There are a ton of these, and we will end up building a whole toolbox full of theorems. Once you've proved a theorem, you can use it just like we'll use postulates. Just take it to be true. You've proved it. Now it's yours. In the next set of videos, we'll be talking about points, lines, and planes. We'll start off by talking about those 6 postulates. Thank you for watching this video. If you learned something and found it helpful, hit the like button. If you're not already, subscribe to the channel for more tutorials on geometry and other topics. Leave a comment with subjects you'd like covered, questions you'd like explained, and anything you're curious about. Check us out at mosaictutoring.com or email us for private tutoring sessions. Have a fantastic day and keep learning.